Well, he's definitely a bigger whistleblower than Daniel Ellsberg. And I've had Daniel Ellsberg on the broadcast, the Pentagon Papers. He's certainly much higher level than Snowden. And he's just been in Germany making a film with Oliver Stone about the NSA. William Binney was number 3 at the NSA, depending on which news article you read. He directed their technological development systems, so he actually knows the entire grid and infrastructure. And he saw criminal spying that violated the law in 2001. He told Congress quietly, so the SWAT team raided him. He followed the law, and here he is 15 years later exposing the system. And he will be joining us in about 35 minutes from now in studio. He's here with us in Austin, Texas, William Binney. And the reason I mention that is our next guest, Katherine Paul, Associate Director of Organic Consumers Association, organicconsumers.org, probably the leading group watchdog of other organic certifiers and writing articles about what's happening at state level, federal level, and international level. Just a cornucopia, pun intended, of vital information for people that don't want to eat pesticide-laden food, don't want to eat GMO, and want to know what true organic food is. Part of this revolution that's beginning to win with McDonald's and all these big companies saying no more bovine growth hormone. We're going to start phasing out the pesticides. We're seeing some big victories here. But the establishment is striking back by going and creating fake PR organizations that come out and go, oh, sugar and high fructose is good. Oh, there are good GMOs. And I've got a stack of news articles breaking this down. But they were banned, even though they set it up months ago, from being part of this big Whole Foods-sponsored event. Headline, Gene Giants kick OCA off South by Southwest food panel discussion. And I wanted to just show TV viewers and read this for radio listeners, just the news the last 3 days. From Monday to today, just a few articles I grabbed out of the stack here. U.S. sets new record for denying censoring government files, AP. AP president says that it's totalitarian. What did William Binney tell The Guardian a few months ago? He said it is a total totalitarian takeover, close quote. What does AP now say? It is a totalitarian takeover. That's AP. It isn't Alex Jones anymore using words like that. Folks, you look out your window and your neighbor's house has fire shooting out of the windows. It's on fire. That's an alarmist statement. It's on fire. Oh, that guy's alarmist. He's upset. What's wrong with him? Well, people weren't paying attention. Of course I was yelling and screaming. Foreign corporations have hijacked the country. They own both parties. We're in trouble. Just one headline. Here's another one. FOI, FOIA access of information, scoring 2015. State Department gets an F. Here's another headline. White House exempts itself from FOIA requests. Totally. As of Tuesday, the Office of Administration will no longer have to heed FOIA requests. According to RT, they just say they don't have to. That violates the Open Records Act, National Security Act. That's a felony. They're just announcing it, though. Remember when Cheney said he was above the law and that the vice president was more important than the president? Remember Nixon saying it's not illegal? In fact, can we find that clip when Nixon said it's not illegal when the president does it? It's okay when the president does it. So continuing, here's another article. FDA proposes to let drug companies undermine official safety warnings. Look at that headline right there. So they want to just get rid of even letting you know what these drugs can do to you. Here's another one. Coca-Cola caught paying health leaders to say soda is healthy snack. Yeah, this is how they operate. I'm going to stop right there and go to Katherine Paul, whose organization has been banned from South by Southwest, and we even know who said ban it and who they follow their orders from. Folks need to understand that the people that are running South by Southwest are extreme totalitarians and have been messing with me for 20 years, trying to jack with this radio show and TV show. So they're really bad guys. And I've been telling you this for a long time. It's becoming more and more evident. Katherine, I wanted to do 5-6 minutes of background. So it's not just you that this is happening to. They had the police ticket us for using a sound device downtown, warning about GMOs in McDonald's, but they were letting everybody else use sound devices, including the pedicabs and other groups, and they've let me march many times with a bullhorn, and they've lost lawsuits over it, but still, they ticketed us and shut us down because McDonald's ordered them to. I guess they're the boss, but not for long. Katherine Paul, thank you for coming on with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
You just heard that background. Can you comment on that and then tell us what's happened to your organization?
Well, none of what you say really surprises me, and we've seen this. You know, my focus has been for the past few years on the biotech industry corporations and we call them the junk food manufacturers, and they're not only, you know, propaganda programs and the millions of dollars that they spend to sort of spin the truth, but also their obvious manipulation of the federal government from the FDA right down to state and local politicians. So what happened with us, as you say, is I, one of the organizers of a panel, a session there at South by Southwest, contacted me, asked me if I'd be available to participate on a panel with Kathleen Enright, the executive VP of the Biotech Industry Organization, and I said, sure, I would be happy to sit there and have a discussion with her. But when there was no follow-up with confirmation, and I finally, you know, reached out and said, what's up, I was told, well, Kathleen Enright had said we were not allowed to be on the panel, so they basically uninvited me.
So the biotech industry is literally running the so-called panel on safe and healthy food and the future of food here in the trendy so-called liberal city of Austin, where Whole Foods is based. Whole Foods is a sponsor, heavily involved. And so what we have is a Don King boxing match, a fake debate with a bunch of hand-picked people that won't actually engage in any real discussion. What we have is perception management.
Exactly. And you know, I picked up the phone and I called Kathleen Enright and I said, is this true? Did you really uninvite me from this panel? And she said it was absolutely true because they didn't want to. She figured that if I showed up, there was going to be a debate about the health and safety of GMOs, and she said that debate is over.
Don't want that.
And that's not the conversation she wanted to have.
Notice the same corporate tactic. The debate is over.
Exactly.
That's what the Borg say in Star Trek. We will assimilate you. The debate is over. You will submit. I don't think so. I think the debate's over for them with the thousands of studies coming out that a lot of GMOs are very dangerous. And certainly we have a right to choose. They're trying to block labeling. So they're clearly the bad guys here.
Well, you know, we look at these companies and all of their resources, and they talk this great story about sustainable agriculture and helping farmers and feeding the world. We'd love to invite them to do exactly that, but the way to do that is not by dumping millions of pounds of glyphosate and other toxic chemicals into our soils and onto our food. So it's a shame that with all their power and all their resources, they couldn't put it to better use. But the reality is, and as everyone knows this, genetically engineered crops were never intended as a means of solving world hunger. GMO soy and GMO corn and GMO canola oil and all of those things either go to junk food, or the vast percentage of that goes to make ethanol for your gas tanks or to feed animals in feedlots.
Sure, it's all about profit and monopoly in Monsanto and others' own prospectus and corporate speeches. You're a bigger expert on this than I, but I've seen the South by Southwest announcements. It's been on TV. South by Southwest to help the earth with clean, healthy, sustainable food to feed the Africans. And in reality, from India to Africa, GMO is creating disaster zones. And in India, linked to massive farmer suicides, and here to breast cancer and every other nightmare you can imagine. I mean, these are the folks that brought us Agent Orange.
And they're not; these crops are not feeding the world. We're not feeding human beings, starving human beings, a bunch of GMO soy and corn. That's not where those crops are going. And the argument that genetic engineering can, create drought-resistant crops and all of these is baloney, because 99% of GMO crops are engineered for one reason and one reason only, and that's to withstand massive doses of pesticides or herbicides, and that's
right.
what Monsanto and the rest of them are selling, and that's where their profits are. They can't make a profit genetically engineering a drought-resistant crop unless that drought-resistant crop requires some toxic chemical, because that's what they sell.
Let's explain that. The big four companies globally, there's a bunch of other smaller ones, but the big four have most of the spectrum of business. They could come out with very clean, one genetic trait, studied things that use less water, have higher yield. There might still be side effects. That should all be debated and researched properly. But instead, they've got hardcore pharmacological crops producing live viruses, chemicals, you name it, open air, where they program the crops to produce whatever they want. Folks, I know it sounds Buck Rogers. Look it up for yourself. Look up HIV virus grown in protogen corn, Associated Press, 2002. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up. Thousands of these crops being tested, and they just say safe and effective, debate is over. And then all their engineering are these BT crops and other systems that are designed to resist these deadly pesticides that we know. I mean, another two studies came out last week, as you know, where glyphosates are linked directly to fivefold increase in kidney failure. Well, I mean, look at the kidneys failing everywhere. I mean, it is not a suicide pact to go along with Monsanto, especially with their long history. And I'm sorry to be ranting here. It just makes me so mad to watch the so-called liberals here in Austin, Lewis Black and South by Southwest, because it's not just kicking you out and putting up Monsanto like they're saving the earth and are liberals. It's the whole thing is a censored authoritarian fraud. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. Go ahead.
No, and I mean, I couldn't agree more. And the fact that they can't even allow someone like myself to be there because they don't want to admit that there still is a debate. The fact that they're spending millions and millions of dollars to show up at these places, to get articles in publications all over the world written by people who on the surface look like they're scholars or scientists, but when you dig deep into their background, actually have deep ties to industry. I would do on your show to read a couple of recent things that have come out.
Sure.
There are three things on my radar everybody ought to read. One of them is a book that just came out by Stephen Drucker. He wrote a book called Altered Genes, Twisted Truth, How the Venture to Genetically Engineer Our Food.
He's coming on in 2 weeks. He's coming on 2 weeks. Plug the book again.
He's great. It's Altered Genes, Twisted Truth. It's how the venture to genetically engineer our food has subverted science, corrupted government, and systematically deceived the public. Great book. 15 years of research went into this.
And let's go further. As you know, they've got 2 different or 3 different big studies just came out, even one from the U.S. government. We now know GMO crops are going through the cell wall and are actually, or the cell membrane in a human, not wall via plant. They're going through the cell membrane and changing our DNA and mitochondria and mutating us, just like they do lab rats.
I mean, exactly. And we have never, ever subjected these to long-term human health studies. And I love it. I just love it when the Monsanto folks and all of their front groups and phony bought and paid for scientists say there's just no proof that anybody's ever died from eating a GMO food, or, we can't trace any illnesses back to GMO foods. Well, we can't because nobody knows where that stuff is. There's no real traceability. But scientists are tracing it back. And this idea that if you eat something and you don't drop over dead immediately means it must be safe is ridiculous.
Well, then cigarettes must be good.
Pardon?
I mean, you don't drop dead from your first cigarette, so they must be good.
Exactly. I mean, we have an epidemic of infertility in the younger generation. Why is everybody having to go to the doctor to get pregnant?
Oh, it's also real
Infertility
funny
is
that
rampant.
in a bunch of rodent studies, they never do them in humans, as you said, they can do them quicker in rodents, that it causes infertility in them to eat these BT crops. Funny.
It's rampant. The deceit is rampant. The logic is ridiculous. And what I think that people are beginning more and more to make the connection between the fact that there are two issues here. There's the issue. Well, there are actually way more than two issues. But when it comes to human health, there's the issue of is genetic modification itself creating a product that is itself dangerous and causing us illness, and there are plenty of studies that suggest yes. But also, you can't have those foods without using massive amounts of toxic, poisonous chemicals.
Well, it's clearly both.
And those chemicals, right, and those chemicals not only are on your food, they're in your water. They're in your soil. They're everywhere. And it's just common sense, I think, and I think we see it. It's evidenced by the fact that the junk food companies are all in trouble, and the organics are in farmers markets, whether they're organic or not, just local food that we know where it came from without pesticides. Sales of those are growing like crazy because people are just putting two and two together.
And Katherine, you said you had three things everybody should read, and I interrupted you going back to the book. Come back and tell us those two things. And clearly, we're starting to gain momentum. It transcends left, right. It's common sense, not having your kids die of cancer when they're 20. This is serious. We know that the worm is starting to turn. I want to know how you think they're going to strike back as awareness explodes. Stay with us. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central, we're here warning people. We promote basic liberty. Final segment with Katherine Paul. I'll go back to your calls and huge amounts of news, social engineering news, attempts to disarm us, attempts to balkanize. I'm going to break down all of it coming up in the next hour in your calls. Katherine Paul from organicconsumers.org. Excellent site, amazing news, amazing information. She's the associate director. She was banned, and then I guess her group after that, from being part of South by Southwest, even though they were approached and put on the panels. This, I think, is the enemy striking back, to answer my question to her, but I want her to elaborate, trying to shut down debate, trying to create fake debates, but I just don't see it working. It's like a tidal wave of awakening is taking place. So what's the rest of the story? Where do you see all this going now? How will they strike back? And then what were the other 2 points you were going to make?
Well, I wanted to direct people to read a couple of other things just to help get more background on really the depth of the conspiracy to deceive consumers, because it really has been a conspiracy on the part of corporations. There's a new nonprofit called U.S. Right to Know that recently published a report called Seedy Business, What Big Food is Hiding with its slick PR campaign on GMOs. Great deal of good information on there, outlining very specifically to what lengths these corporations have gone to manipulate government policy and manipulate the message. And also another new book out, and I think this is just a sign, I mean, that there's so much being put out there right now. A book called Poison Spring, The Secret History of Pollution and the EPA. Somebody who worked for the EPA for 15 years inside, talking about how the EPA has chosen to ignore its own scientists on the issues of pesticides like glyphosate and pander instead to corporations.
How do you see them striking back? And in a battle, briefly, where are we right now?
In the battle, I think our side is getting pretty close to a tipping point. We've heard from insiders at General Mills, they're absolutely panicked. That's why they're buying up organic companies. We see Kellogg's is in trouble. We see McDonald's is in trouble. Corporation after corporation in the food industry are beginning to see that maybe being in bed with the biotech industry wasn't such a great idea after all.
Even Chuck Norris is coming out against Monsanto. I mean that states the end for them.
It does. So there's the battle on that level. Consumers and their interest in their own personal health. That's what's really been driving this for the past few years, and we've seen it with the battles to label GMOs and the lengths to which biotech industry have gone to defeat those laws.
And they won those battles, but they lost those wars, and the backlash is incredible. I want to have you back up for a full hour in the near future. Amazing work. God bless you. OrganicConsumers.org. Katherine Paul, thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, that's why they push racism and division all day in the name of fighting it. If we ever come together, left, right, whatever, for transparency and liberty and free market and due process, it's over. And people, I mean, let me tell you, the elites don't eat GMO. You go to any elitist compound, any, nice hotel, the more elite it gets, the more organic and clean it gets. I mean, that's another reason they're going to fail. People are learning about that. Also, high-quality supplements to help cleanse yourself. The X2 Nation Iodine, unbelievable. The Oxy Powder, all of it. DNA Force, InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com. Everything from T-shirts to water filters to shortwave radios, everything is 10% off. It ends today. InfoWarsStore.com, and your purchase funds the operation. I want to thank you for your support. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. Call now. We can answer all your questions. Get your order in. Thank you. In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force from InfoWars Life. Texas, William Benny. And the reason I mention that is our next guest, Katherine Paul, Associate Director of Organic Consumers Association, OrganicConsumers.org, probably the leading group watchdog of other organic certifiers and writing articles about what's happening at state level, federal level, and international level. Just a cornucopia, pun intended, of vital information for people that don't want to eat pesticide-laden food, don't want to eat GMO, and want to know what true organic food is. Well, he's definitely a bigger whistleblower than Daniel Ellsberg. And I've had Daniel Ellsberg on the broadcast, the Pentagon Papers. He's certainly much higher level than Snowden. And he's just been in Germany making a film with Oliver Stone about the NSA. They set it up months ago from being part of this big Whole Foods sponsored event. Headline, Gene Giants kick OCA off South by Southwest food panel discussion. And I wanted to just show TV viewers and read this for radio listeners, just the news the last 3 days. From Monday to today, just a few articles I grabbed out of the stack here. U.S. sets new record for denying censoring government files, AP. AP President William Benny was number 3 at the NSA, depending on which news article you read. He directed their technological development systems, so he actually knows the entire grid and infrastructure. And he saw criminal spying that violated the law in 2001. He told Congress quietly, so the SWAT team raided him. He followed the law, and here he is 15 years later exposing the system. And he will be joining us in about 35 minutes from now in studio. He's here with us in Austin. Part of this revolution that's beginning to win with McDonald's and all these big companies saying no more bovine growth hormone. We're going to start phasing out the pesticides. We're seeing some big victories here. But the establishment is striking back by going and creating fake PR organizations that come out and go, oh, sugar and high fructose is good. Oh, there are good GMOs. And I've got a stack of news articles breaking this down. But they were banned, even